Guys, how's it going? It's Al. Week 14 quarterback rankings. My quarterbacks ranked 1 through 12 specifically for the week, not rest of season, the final week of your regular season in your fantasy football league. So it's a very important week for those of you right on the cusp trying to get into your fantasy playoffs. So let's go through it and talk about the guys that I think you should start over everybody else on the week. I hope that you are still alive for your playoffs. If you're still fighting for it, hopefully you get that W this week and take you all the way in. If you would not mind dropping a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notifications bell, I would greatly appreciate it. So let's go.
He's a legend.
The Week 14 Smiz Gang Listener League is posted. It's $10 as always. It is absolutely no rake and the best tournament on DraftKings as always. Also, it's not available in the lobby. You have to go to smizzle.tv/links to find the link to the league. That is where you have to go to get it. And there are links to absolutely everything else that I do. The main channel, the Discord, the Listener League, everything else, all my socials. So go to that link tree and find it at smizzle.tv/links and make sure that you get in the Listener League today. We've got to fill it. Otherwise, they're going to make it smaller next week. Occupying the #1 spot on the ranks this week is Jalen Hurts. Look, no quarterback in the league has looked as comfortable on a week in, week out basis. It's kind of, it's surprising that a quarterback that has such a great offensive line and so many amazing weapons surrounding him looks really comfortable, especially when he's got tremendous talent with his legs and also really good through the air. It's amazing that they can put in different game plans. 2 weeks ago against Green Bay, he ran for 157 yards on 17 attempts. The week before that against Indy, ran it 16 times. Last week against Tennessee, a team that's really, let's say, vulnerable through the air, he only ran it 5 times for 12 yards, and they attacked through the air. He completed 74% of his passes for 380 yards and 3 touchdowns. Both days, though, 2 totally different types of attacks through Jalen Hurts. 32.8 fantasy points, 37.8 fantasy points. The very likely MVP this season at this point, with Philly only losing the 1 game on the season. Hurts easy choice for the #1 spot against the New York Giants. At #2, Josh Allen, the unicorn sliding in behind. Now they are trying to avenge the loss that they suffered to the New York Jets back in week 9, averaging 27 fantasy points per game. Since that Jets game, when that was the game where he started being between weeks 9 and 10 was when he was being evaluated for that UCL injury. He's only had 4 games. 2 of those 25 fantasy points and more. 2 of those under 20, 12.58 and 17.92. I think he's fine. I mean, obviously he's hurting, but fine, he doesn't need to be pulled from it. They're still throwing the ball. He's still throwing it with accuracy and velocity. Multiple touchdowns in each of the last 2 games and a rushing touchdown as well on 18 carries the last 2 weeks. Josh Allen this week is going to have to show out at home against the Jets. At #3, Patrick Mahomes, 27.5 fantasy points on average for the year, coming off of 2 games that are well below his season average, 22.4, 19.8 against the Rams and against Cincinnati. The Rams, they throttled them, and they really didn't need to throw the ball a whole lot. This week against Denver, one of the tougher defenses, they allow very few touchdowns. I think they've allowed 7 touchdowns total in the last 7 weeks. I kind of feel like the Chiefs are going to put a couple on them. They don't have the highest team total on the week, but they are favored by 9, do have a team total, implied team total, based on the spread and the total of 26 points. So if they score 26 points, 3 touchdowns incoming minimum, possibly more. He's on pace for his best season in terms of yards, 300-yard bonus a whole lot of the time. Last week only 223, but before that he had gotten it 5 weeks in a row, 5 weeks in a row, 6 out of the last 7. Mahomes, you're starting him if you have him. You're just hoping that he can get over the Denver hump in this spot, as it is a tough matchup for opposing quarterbacks, which is why he's at #3. Joe Burrow slides in right behind him. Joe Cool has been very, very good, and with Jamar Chase back, they're a fully operational battle station. Running backs are very replaceable, so it doesn't hurt Joe Burrow if Joe Mixon's there or if Samaje Perine is the back. We don't know if Mixon's going to get cleared yet from concussion protocol, but it's not going to change Joe Burrow's outlook anyway in this game against Cleveland. Cleveland has been somebody who's been very susceptible on the ground, but Joe Burrow is just so good and the weapons are just so tight on the outside that he's still going to get his numbers over everybody else. Cincinnati in this game has a team total of 26.5, and the Bengals expected to win this game as they are favored by 6 points. At number 5, Tua Tagovailoa, they got flexed to the Sunday night game, and they're playing the Chargers in this one. The Chargers, very exploitable on the ground, but Miami doesn't have like the most reliable running game. Like, they don't have like a Derrick Henry. They don't have a Nick Chubb. They have two guys who do very well within scheme in Jeff Wilson Jr. and Raheem Mostert, and neither one has expressed themselves as the main guy. One week it's JWJ, the next week it's Mostert. Last week it was Mostert. So with the primary way that they matriculate the ball down the field, being through the air, through their wide receivers, we'll monitor the Jalen Waddle injury that he left the game with last week. Tyreek Hill being as amazing as he has been this year. Tua coming up short of 300 yards over the last 2 weeks by a total of 6 yards, but averaging a ton of points on the season. He has been absolutely spectacular all year long. He comes in here at number 5. On the other side of that game, we have Justin Herbert. As the Chargers get more healthy, Justin Herbert keeps rolling out really big numbers. Now, last week only 1 touchdown pass in kind of a disappointing output. Miami's defense not as strong, and they are susceptible to giving up a lot of fantasy points, specifically to opposing quarterbacks, as they get into more shootouts and track meets than just about everybody else. Both of these teams play very fast, and I think Justin Herbert is going to challenge for 300 plus yards and multiple touchdowns in this one. Dak Prescott has been really good. The problem here is, like, Dak, if this was a game where they didn't have such a soft opponent on the ground and overall, right? Like, the Cowboys are one of the top teams in the league, number 1 DVOA defense. They're one of the top 5 DVOA offenses, depending on the week. I think they were number 3 or 4. I can't remember off the top of my head. But since he's come back, they play very fast. They throttled Indy. They caused like 76 turnovers in the fourth quarter. And they ran away from it. It was the first game since Dak has been back beyond the first game. So like week 8, 250 yards, 250 plus in all 4 games from week 8 through week 12. He threw for 170, but threw for 3 touchdowns. And it's not the attempts, right? 30 attempts last week, 30 attempts the week before, 25 attempts against Minnesota. 2 of those games, they absolutely blew their opponents out. And that has kind of held down Dak's fantasy numbers because he's not being pushed and the Cowboys aren't being pushed. And that's what's holding his rank down, because they have 2 excellent running backs. No matter what you think of Zeke, he's still a very good running back. They have a good enough offensive line, and they're playing from ahead so often that even though they play up in pace, this is a game where they're favored by 16. They have the highest implied team total on the week at 31. Dak is going to have to get it done in the first half, as I don't anticipate Houston being able to push the Cowboys. Like, let's say I don't see them being able to score like 17 points by the beginning of the third quarter, right? Like the first drive of the third quarter. If Houston has 17 points, the Cowboys are going to have to keep running offense normally. It's more than likely that the Cowboys get up like 20 points by halftime and then really just slow things down with Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott. So he's still a better option just because of the touchdown possibility against Houston here. As good a pass catching backs as he does have who are involved in the passing game. CeeDee Lamb, Schultz, Gallup had a big game last game as well. So Dak Prescott stays here at 7, but it's a little bit more dangerous because of the fact that they may not have to keep the pedal to the metal moving on. Geno Smith is number 8 this week. Just another week, 20.6 fantasy. If I told you that Geno Smith was going to average over 20 fantasy points per game and start all week, right? Like, you could say, okay, well, he had 20 points in one game, then he got injured. No, he has been consistently very good. Over 20 fantasy points each of the last 4 games. And the week before that, he had 19. So very consistent, very solid, multiple touchdowns in the last 6 games. If you have him, you're starting him. And I think that you're starting him over Kyler Murray. And I know that that might come as a shock to some people, because Kyler Murray was really highly drafted this year. I think it was the QB7, QB5, or QB6 or QB7 in drafts this year. He has a matchup against the Patriots. It's kind of a lower totaled game. The Patriots are a little bit tough on defense, specifically against the run. But I don't know if Arizona is going to thrive. I don't know that there's going to be a lot of touchdowns. Patriots play super duper slow, and it's going to be a tough spot for Kyler. He still has that good rushing floor. He's still got great weapons on the outside with Hollywood Brown on one side and DeAndre Hopkins on the other. So there's a path to him having a good game, but I have Geno ranked above him, and for that particular reason. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that I would have Geno Smith consistently ranked ahead of Kyler Murray, but life comes at you fast, and here we are in week 14. Now, number 10 and number 11, this is the weird spot. Currently, this could flip for me. Currently, I have Kirk Cousins at number 10, and he hasn't had great weeks this year. And I might flip this later in the week, but they are playing in the highest totaled game of the week against Detroit in Detroit, right? Weather controlled situation, which is important in mid-December, just for consistency purposes. Detroit is the Coors Field of fantasy football this year. Really high team total, really close game. Detroit's favored by 1. This could be the spot where Kirk Cousins puts up a 25-point fantasy game, something he has not done all season. And behind him, I have Jared Goff, who at home versus on the road, at home averaging 22.3 fantasy points per game this season, on the road averaging 9.9 fantasy points per game this season. And we've seen better ceiling games from Jared Goff than we've seen from Kirk Cousins. 24.6 against Jacksonville in a game that they pulled him. 37 against Seattle way back in week 4. 26 against Washington. But his floor has been really bad, but a lot of those came in road games. So, like, maybe I'm wrong here and I should have Jared Goff ahead of Kirk Cousins. I have to think more on this, but you guys want the quarterback video on Tuesday, so understand that I have Goff behind Cousins, but if you have both, I could make a rationalization for starting Goff over Cousins, because while they want to run the football, last week they played DeAndre Swift more. Finally, they flipped it. Swift finally flipped Jamal Williams, and Jamal Williams this year has basically been LeGarrette Blount. They don't throw him the football. When he's in there, if he's running it 20 times and he's the one that gets all the inside the 5 carries, they're more likely to run plays, where DeAndre Swift, they're going to drop back more and have him run more routes than Jamal Williams runs. It's not because Jamal Williams is bad in the passing game, but all of those things are arrow up things for Jared Goff. So I have him at 11, but like, I could move him up here. And rounding everything off at number 12, Trevor Lawrence. I'm going to assume he's undergoing an MRI on his left foot. I'm assuming that he's playing. They're saying everything's trending in the right direction for Trevor Lawrence. He's been very good, even though he wasn't great last week. Still got out of that game with 16.3 fantasy points against Detroit. Detroit's defense did kind of shut down Jacksonville a little bit in that game. They won 40-14. Jacksonville has an offense that can get shut down. The problem is they need more from Christian Kirk. I mean, they've gotten more from Christian Kirk. They need more consistency from the secondary guys in the passing game, which they just don't have. They have guys who are just guys. They have Marvin Jones Jr. Zay Jones got like 7-8 targets, but only caught 2 of them. Evan Ingram is a nice complementary piece as like the number 3 or number 4 guy. And that's really held down the consistency for somebody like Trevor Lawrence, which is why he's in this spot as opposed to next year. If they were to bring in a real alpha in the draft for Trevor Lawrence, along with Travis Etienne, who we really hope they use more in the passing game, moving forward, please, he's very, very good and very explosive. Please just throw him the football like 6-7 times a game. Use him like Austin Eckler instead of Derrick Henry, and your quarterback will probably have a much better time. Right now, I have him at number 12. There are a bunch of bye weeks this week. Some of the guys would end up being in this top 12. Most of them would not, though. It's like the Falcons, the Packers, the Colts, the Saints, the Commanders, the Bears. So like maybe 2 of that 6 would end up being in the top 12. So without them, Trevor Lawrence fills out my QB1s for the week. I wish you the best of luck. Hope you make your fantasy playoffs. Look out for another video right there.
He's a legend.